Hello and welcome. In this video we'll find out how to define the stock. We can use stock models to help visualize the toolpaths more realistically. The stock model that you create can be displayed with the part geometry when viewing toolpaths, during backplot, or while verifying toolpaths. On the screen is the completed geometry for tutorial 1. Our origin, x0, y0, z0, is at the center of this grid on the left. What I'm going to do is move over to the left in the Toolpath Manager and click on the plus sign in front of Properties. Next, I'm going to move on down and click on Stock Setup. Now, before we explore any of the fields in this page, what I'm going to do is move on down to the bottom right hand corner and click on the question mark. And here we are in Help. Now, for example, I can move over to the next page, Field Definitions, and here I'll find brief explanations of what these particular functions do. For example, I've clicked on Bounding Box, and it returns you to the graphics window to select geometry that defines the limits of the bounding box. I'm going to minimize Help. Well, let's go and check out bounding box, and this will enable us to get Mastercam to figure out the size of the material. I'm going to click on bounding box. Now, over on the left hand side in the bounding box dialog box, starting up at the top, we've got all entities checked. So as you can see in the screen, all our entities have been selected. Down below, what do we want to create? Well, we'd like to create the stock. I don't want to create any lines, arcs, points or center points. I'm going to leave these unchecked. So we're just creating stock. Now, just below the create section, expand. What I'm going to do in the X value, I'm going to change the expand in X to 0.2. I'm going to move on down to Y. I'm going to change that to 0.2 as well. So what I'm doing is expanding the stock size so it's 200 thou bigger than my finished geometry. Now the Z, I'm going to leave that at 0. Down below is shape. Now the material stock that we're creating is rectangular. So what I'm going to do is move on down. We're finished here, and I'm going to click on OK. Now, what Bounding Box has done is looked at the geometry for tutorial 2 and added 200 thou around the part. So the Y and X value, Mastercam figured that out from our geometry. Now, over on the right, the Z, I'm going to input the thickness at 0.5. Now, moving over to the left, you can see I've got display turned on and also fit screen. Now, I'm going to go down to the bottom and hit OK. And as you can see, this red dashed line represents the stock we've just created. Now, earlier on in the expand section, we expanded 0.2. So the distance from this red dashed line to the finished geometry is 200 thou all around. Let's move up to the toolbar and get an isometric view. I'm going to do a screen fit. And there's our stock, and it's 1/2 inch thick. Let's move on back to the left now, and let's go back into Stock Setup. What I'd like to do is set up the material. So I'm going to move over to Tool Settings. Now, at the very bottom in the Material section, we don't have any material identified. So what I'm going to do is click on the Select button. Now, in this Material List dialog box, at the very bottom in the Source section, I'm going to open up this drop down and select Mill Library. Now, the material that we're using for tutorial 1 is aluminum inch 6061. I've selected it. I'm now going to go on down to the bottom and hit the green check mark for OK. Now just above in the feed calculation area you can see I have the radio button turned on from tool. Now this uses the feed rate, the plunge rate, retract and spindle speed directly from the tool definition. Down below, from material, calculates the feed rate, plunge rate, retract and spindle speed based on the type of stock material. Below that, from defaults, uses the setting from the toolpath default files. Let's go back to the stock setup page. Now let's look down in the lower left corner, stock origin, and as you can see the X value is set at X 3.15 with Y and Z at 0. So what we're saying is our stock origin is located here. Now what I'm going to do is pick a point up in this top left corner. I'm now going to pick OK, and let's see what happens to the position of our stock. Now I'm going to move up to the top and get a top view, and also just slide off to the left and do a screen fit. Now as you can see we picked this top left corner for the stock setup. So what we're saying is that the stock origin, this corner, is at X 3.15. Now it's totally off out in right field, so let's go back into stock setup and set it back up again in its correct position. What I'm going to do is just pick over here and pick OK, do a screen fit, and there's our stock correctly positioned. Now that completes our video on stock setup.